Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Hi, you guys. Very glad to be here. Super exciting to be in Vegas at this incredible time of transition. So we are talking about fear tonight. How many of you guys, just with a show of hands, think about fear? Oh, really? Okay, you guys are a lot further ahead than I was a year ago. We're actually going to do something kind of interesting. Do you guys know the startup here that's called Wedgies? Have any of you guys heard of that? Best name ever for a startup, we have to say. Yay. So I am curious to know what your biggest fear is. So if you can do this, take your cell phones out. You're going to put them away after, but take them out. And if you can text to this number, 702-534-3038, I feel like a telemarketer, what your biggest fear is. Now for number one is height, so that could be skydiving or bungee jumping or anything along those lines. Oh, public speaking, that's so funny. Public speaking, okay, we just changed that. Blood, let's do like anything medical, like going to the doctor or that kind of thing. Flying, so a lot of people are afraid to get on an airplane. Drowning or anything related to swimming. A lot of people say like being out in the ocean by myself, sort of that open water film. Bugs or spiders or kind of any animals. Failure, big one. Mark spoke well about entrepreneurship fears. Getting sick. Include death in that. Or you can be honest. If you don't feel fear is a big part of your life and it's not something you think about, let's say more than once a month, once every 2 months, then A, you're awesome, or B, you're not mindful of it, but that's cool too. Do number 9. So text away, and let's see if we have any answers. Thanks to Wedgies, we get these answers in real time. So let's see what people say. And be honest, this is anonymous, so. All right, so here we go. Oh, wow. Oh my God, that is shocking. Shocking, shocking, shocking. Oh, so not a lot of flying, not a lot of people admitting to bugs or spiders. Okay, bugs and spiders is going up. Okay, Wedgies, you guys, if you're here, you are awesome because this is so cool that works so well. Failure, God, I so didn't expect that. That's great. So thank you. Thanks yourselves. A big round of applause for yourselves. Thank you very much. Woo. Awesome. So you guys, you can put your cell phones away now, and I'll pay $1 or maybe a penny to all of you that don't use your cell phones because it's dark now, so I can see it. Then I'll have a fear of failure talking to you guys. No, I'm just teasing. If there's an emergency, feel free to. You can put away your cell phones. So Jen, we can go up with with talking about fear. So you guys are a lot further ahead in your thoughts about fear than I was a year ago. So this is a slide of my friend Patrick and myself. He's one of my best friends. He tried to talk to me about fear years ago when I was deep in the midst of running Blip. He said, Dina, why don't you think about how fear plays into your life, both in work and in your personal life and in all of your interactions. And Patrick, again, very close friend. This is us about to turn around in Bhutan. This is us traveling last summer and hike up that mountain that's right behind us. But even closest friend as he is, it went totally right over my head. Like, fear? That totally doesn't resonate at all. I basically, Patrick, have no idea what you're talking about. But truth be told, unlike you guys who answered the Wedgie survey, I wasn't really mindful at all then. I was just a busy working entrepreneur, networking when I wasn't working. I was basically your typical New York City workaholic. And I had no idea at that time how much fear had held me back in every aspect of my life. So who was I back then? I was like a lot of you guys. I was an entrepreneur. Had started a company, and the company was called Blip. As Frank was just saying, I started it in 2005, and basically, all I was doing at this time was not being thoughtful. I was just working. So Blip, which some of you guys may know, are the platform for web shows. So for people creating original TV series for the web, we host them, distribute them, and monetize them as well. Once we started the company, again back in 2005, I had this idea in mind of how an entrepreneur's life should be, and I thought I need to live this life. And so that meant just working every minute of every day. I held some different roles over the course of the company as we grew, but for most of the time I was the COO of the company. And I thought, I'm the COO of this growing startup, so I need to work every night. I need to work every weekend too. So every now and then I did take a vacation, maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year, and here's how those vacations went. I'll give you an example. I went with my family once to Puglia, that's on the heel of the boot in Italy, beautiful area. We did this beautiful bike trip through the hills and beautiful countryside of Italy in Puglia. But as we're biking, I kept my cell phone in the side compartment of the jacket. And then when we got to a red light, in some mountainous road, I would pull out my cell phone, not just look at all my emails, the whatever 35 or 40 emails that had come in the last hour or two, and then I would answer literally every single solitary email, get all the documents off to anyone that needed the documents, forward the emails along to anyone that needed to respond, and then I would have to race to catch up to the group until they stopped at the next red light when I would do the exact same thing. So that was my vacation. Really, that was really, really fun at that time. So as the COO of Blip, I was running, I call myself like chief of paperwork, because I was running HR, I was running finance, so getting us through all of our audits. I was running business development, PR, marketing, and also managing all the investor relations with all of the early angel investors who I'd brought in, who funded the company in our early days. And you're thinking, wait, what? Does that even make sense? I was basically running the equivalent of 6 departments, and I didn't have one person working for me at the company. I had an outside accountant that would go through the books once a month. I had a part-time bookkeeper who was helping to manage the cost of the P&L that I was managing, and I had an outside PR firm, but they obviously had a number of other clients as well. Did this even make sense? This was a hot, growing startup. We had plenty of money in the bank from our venture capital firms and our angel investors. And what was essentially going on is I was afraid to ask for help. Mark touched on this a bit. I was afraid of a lot of things. I was afraid I actually didn't deserve a staff. I was afraid to ask my co-founders if I could get help, but I was also afraid that I wouldn't be a good manager if I did have people working for me. And I was especially afraid of this because my dad is a pretty well-known professor at Harvard Business School, so God forbid his daughter wants a staff, gets a staff, and then doesn't manage that staff well, and so I never asked for staff. I just kept working more and more and more hours. Now, in addition to all those departments, I was also the public face of the company. So pretty much every day, I would either give a talk or be on a panel or do a television interview, an internet interview, a magazine interview, a print interview, some type of press interview. This actually is from not far from where we are now. It was talking to Fox Business News during CES, so in Las Vegas, a little ode to Las Vegas. So, there were a lot of cool things about being the public face of the company. I had some cool opportunities. As Frank mentioned, I was named one of the actually most powerful entrepreneurs in the country, which was nice, a very big honor from Fortune magazine. So that meant I got to spend a lot of time with Warren Buffett, who at one point did this and independently got down on one knee, causing a huge flurry of press photographers to come running over and me to laugh and realize that too bad he is actually already very happily married. Then I love to be social, so I look forward to hanging out with you guys afterwards. I started this thing. I'm a big supporter of the New York startup scene. At the time, the New York startup scene was just getting started. So I started this thing called the Founders Club to promote the New York startup scene, because at the time that we started Blip, none of the entrepreneurs knew each other. We didn't know angel investors. We didn't know venture capital investors. We didn't know anyone to do deals with. No one knew anyone else. We were basically all operating independently. So I started this group to promote the New York startup scene. It became this huge thing. So we did events with, everyone from Rupert Murdoch to Mayor Bloomberg you see there, and celebrities like Jimmy Fallon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But fear was holding me back in other ways too. I started getting some very interesting opportunities. One night, I was in bed answering emails, of course. So it wasn't on a bike trip, so I was really on top of those emails. And I got an email totally out of the blue from Sheryl Sandberg. And she said, "Dina, I'd like to get to know you better. I want you to come and spend some time with me. The next time you're in the Bay Area, please set up an appointment with me and let's hang out so that we can see if I can be helpful to you, and at least we can get to know each other. Well, I thought, oh, and she CC'd her assistant. That's when you know that they really mean it. But I thought, she doesn't really mean this. And if I set up this appointment, she's going to think, this girl is wasting my time. So I never responded. To this day, I see her at events, but I've never spent one-on-one time with her because I was worried I was going to waste her time. And this had social implications too. One of my really good friends is one of the founders of the Guilt Group, friends with, a lot of the sort of hot startups in New York, because we all were supporting each other and growing our internet feet together. But I would never ask them out to do anything. Anyone I perceived as more important or powerful than myself, even if we were friends, I would think, they don't really want to be friends. So I would just wait. I mean, we'd hang out a lot, but I would just wait for incoming. Let's go to lunch, let's have brunch, let's have drinks. I would never schedule anything on my own. But these work and social fears pale in comparison to what came next. And this is a little bit hard for me because I've never spoken about this publicly. And obviously almost none of my closest friends know this. But years into running Blip and doing Founders Club, and I started a group for women founders, doing the public stuff and the internal stuff, I started having what most people would probably call panic attacks. And what that meant is that I was essentially afraid to walk down a street by myself. What would happen is, if one of these started coming on, I would feel really faint, and I would feel dizzy and flush, and I would feel like I was about to faint. And I lived in fear of fainting in the middle of a New York City intersection. So I did something really extreme. I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but I would actually make eye contact with someone who was crossing the street at the same time as me to hope to establish enough of a connection with them that if, God forbid, I do faint, they would pick my body up from the ground and keep me from being run over by a taxi. That is not a good way to live. Sorry, guys, 1 second. The way around this is that I started taking cabs everywhere. So I live in the West Village. I had a beautiful 10-minute walk to work through the Washington Square Park to the Central Village, and I took a cab every day to work. $8 a day, 2,000 wasted dollars a year on a startup salary. And so I knew this was a terrible way to live. I knew I needed a big change in my life. My everything was my company. I'd basically given birth to my first internet baby. But I knew that my everything had to change. And so over Thanksgiving weekend 2011, I chatted with my family about leaving the company. And a few days later, we had some personnel changes that made it a lot easier for me to leave. And I did a really bold thing for this ambitious, hardworking girl. I booked a one-way ticket to Indonesia. Thank you. I decided to take some time off to travel very, very far away. It was the best thing I've ever done in my life. I started the trip in Singapore with a layover, then went to Indonesia, then Sri Lanka. These are actually the Lipton tea plantations in Sri Lanka. And then in the tiny town of Pai in northern Thailand, which was my next destination, I had a conversation with a fellow traveler. Where's Amanda? A serendipitous, beautiful talk, a serendipitous conversation with a fellow traveler that totally changed my life. Use this time you have to travel, he said, that's been given to you like a gift, and conquer all of your fears. Now at the time, this totally didn't resonate. It was like that conversation with Patrick years earlier. It completely went over my head. It didn't resonate. I thought, I'm glad I met this nice traveler, but that's great. And then a few weeks later, I was on a beautiful island of Koh Tao in Thailand, on the eastern side of Thailand, and I was walking down the street, no panic attack, a little mindful of that. And that is when I totally just stopped in my tracks. And his words came back to me, and I realized that he was right. I was full of fear. Oh my God, I was afraid to walk down a street. I just didn't know how to call that fear. I hadn't classified that as fear. And it was at this time that I decided to take on his challenge. I was going to use the travel, this time that I had, to conquer every tangible fear that I had, and to see if conquering those fears then translated into other aspects of my life. I decided that this was worth a try, but if I were doing this honestly, I had to start with a really big fear. Okay, not him, because he's pretty cute, but scuba diving. So the background on this is that somebody died on my first scuba diving trip of my life. I had flown over to the Bahamas with my family, and there was another family, mom, dad, my dad's a professor, 2 kids the same age as my sister and me. And on a couple mornings in, my dad and I went on a scuba trip with this family. And we go out, and their father, the professor, was on his last stage of certification. He kicked out 15 kicks, and then his buddy couldn't find him. And very long story short, the dad never surfaced, ever. So for the next week, we would see the 2 daughters and his wife walk up and down the beach, just looking out to the water, wondering what happened to their dad. And then a week later, we flew back with the family, with the mom and the 2 daughters in an empty seat where the dad was supposed to be. I decided that because this was literally my first scuba dive of my life, that some force out there did not intend for me to scuba dive. I was never going to go scuba diving again. It was a very scarring experience. But since I accepted this challenge on Koh Tao, I decided to conquer this fear. With my incredible instructor, Joe, at my side, I went into the water terrified, but did that first dive and came out feeling a bliss I had never felt before in my entire life. I loved that first dive. I had a short walk back from the scuba shop to my hotel right after doing this first dive, and I twice, believe it or not, I've never had this happen before or since, but I was walking and someone was walking the other direction, stopped in front of me and said, "Do you know that you're glowing?" I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I felt different. I felt a lot lighter. So Joe suggested that I go on and get my scuba certificate, which I did, and diving is now one of my favorite activities in the world. Number 2 fear was ziplining. I once organized with friends a ziplining trip in Costa Rica, organized it, went to the place for ziplining, completely wimped out and watched all of my friends zipline for hours and hours and hours and hours while I sat and watched them. I couldn't imagine getting on that frigging thing with just like a little holster. So I thought, if I'm going to conquer ziplining, I need a place to do this with no way out. So in northern Laos, there is a thing called the Gibbons experience, where you live in a treehouse only accessible by zipline. And so I traveled to northern Laos, where this is the view from your treehouse. You're 40 meters up from the ground. You're really, really, really high. One wrong step at night on your way to the bathroom and you're gonna die. And you have to go zip line to get in, to get home, and you zip line to get out of home to get food. This is called facing a real fear. For sure if something happens to your harness or to the zip line, yeah, you're done. There's no safety net there. But by the end of the 3rd day, it got easier. Oh yes, you wear this harness and then you're just traveling around the forest, ziplining around. And by the end of the 3rd day, this is coming home one day for dinner, by the end of the 3rd day it got easier. I wouldn't say I love ziplining, but I can certainly say that I've done it like a lot. So something interesting happened at the end of that 3rd day. So it's done with the Gibbon experience. Check that off the fear list. like I said, not sure I'm ever going to zip line again, but I did do it. And I had to get now down this huge hill to this river in order to cross the river from Laos into Vietnam to go to my next destination. I've been traveling for 7 months at this point with these huge, ridiculous bags that no hip backpacker would ever be seen next to. I had never carried my own bags. I didn't even think I could carry my own bags. But when I finished this given experience, without even thinking about it, I picked up my 2 ridiculously enormous, embarrassing non-backpacker bags and just scurried all the way down this huge hill to get to the bank of the river, and then like literally basically to double take with myself, like, I didn't even know I could carry my own bags. So I was doing pretty well, but there was a big fear left. My whole life I've been terrified of bungee jumping. Once growing up, my family went to Zimbabwe, and my sister and I said, we're gonna bungee jump off of Victoria Falls. And we get to Victoria Falls, and we go, and we're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it first. No, I'm gonna do it first, yeah. And we get there, and the bungee place was closed for lunch. My sister and I were like, oh, that's a shame, but let's move on. And my mom said, no worries, we can wait. We're like, no, we don't want to interfere with the family travel schedule. We don't need to wait, it's fine. She's like, no. We're like, let's leave. So we'd escaped, but barely. Now all of a sudden, I was a few days away from traveling to Queenstown, home of the first bungee jump in the world, the most famous bungee jump in the world. And I had a big decision to make. I didn't know what to do. So I posted on Facebook, I have this fear of bungee jumping. Do I need to conquer it for the sake of conquering a fear, or can I just really get on with my life? And I got a huge response back with people very strongly saying, yes, jump. And people very emphatically saying, no, you might ruin your eyes, it can cause black eyes, which it can. You're pretty cool as, you're okay as you are, don't jump. And so I didn't know what to do, and I signed up. I thought, I can get out if I need to get out. And I go to the jump site with my friends, day of, there were 5 of us that were traveling together, and we walk into the bungee jump site, and we have to get weighed, which is really a little scary to think about. We have to get weighed so they know how to, fix it for your weight, and you get your harness, and you register, and we do all that, and then you get a number, and so they got their number, and they go, and they wait in line, and they jump, and I went to the bathroom. And then I went in a stall, and then I stayed in the stall for an hour. So my friends are all looking for me. The bungee jump people, the staff, is searching just everywhere for me, and I'm staring at a roll of toilet paper, wondering if this is the last toilet paper I'm ever going to see in my life. So finally, I walk out to the bridge, and I was really scared. It's hard for me to put into words how scared I was. I was pretty convinced that I was just going to die. But I walk out there in the middle of the bridge, and they had the harness on, they wrap the towel around me, and then you're standing out there, and I'm asking just a million questions. Has anyone as heavy as me ever survived this jump? Like, excuse me? How does the gravity work? How does the harness work? Then I made the main employee double check the harness and make sure that, I didn't weigh too much. And then I had another person come over to check. Then I asked the manager to come over and check. This is so embarrassing. And he came over to check, and they're like, we do this all day long. We've been operating 100 years. Nobody's ever died. But I asked question after question until there were really just no more questions to ask. And then I just stood there. And at a certain moment, I just decided that I actually was going to do this. But I wasn't going to do this for my friends or for their peer pressure or the staff that was super annoyed at me by this point. I was actually going to do this for me, for a big reason. I was going to do this because I wanted to change my life. And so I went. And I did do a swan dive in case the rope broke. My fingers would break the water rather than my head. Maybe I'd survive, maybe. It was 48 meters up, so it's pretty high. And the minute I dove off, you dive into the air, and I felt tingles from the top of my fingertips, through my head, through the back of my head, all the way down my face and my neck and my body, and I felt tingles in my toes too. And it was a profound experience. I felt like I was diving into freedom. I felt liberated. And I started crying, cry of happiness, realizing that I was putting my whole old life, all those fears, behind me. And I was crying so hard with happiness that I actually missed the pole that you're supposed to grab onto to get into the boat. I finally got there and I got in the boat and I'm crying and smiling, and the guy in the boat looked at me and said, "It can be an exercise in spirituality and mindfulness, can't it?" He had read my mind. I felt free. So for good measure, it was hot that day, so I put shorts on, grabbed a friend, and we did a second dive. I had a second jump. I was a lot more relaxed that time. And then I sat down to watch some other people jump, and I wrote this. I've decided to live a life where courage is more important than fear. With this jump, I've now conquered my last fear. In a few weeks, I'll return to the US, more relaxed, open, and compassionate, and I will live without fear. I would never have written this back in my COO Blip days. I wouldn't even think about compassion and think about fear. It was just not even a language that would have occurred to me. But I wrote this out on the side of that bridge, and then I pressed post on Facebook. And since then, my life has been really different. I used to live my life responding to people, hoping that my friends, who I really liked but was a little afraid of, were going to invite me out, hoping that Cheryl maybe would send me another email asking me to come visit her. But now I live life on my own terms, and I ask for what I want, and I'm open with people. I'm vulnerable, and I say scary things to people, even guys that I like. I wrote this to a new guy friend. I'll read it to you guys if it's too small. A really successful entrepreneur who I went out with a few weeks ago, who I then didn't hear from. But I wrote, "I had a great time hanging out with you on Saturday. I like your authenticity. It's rare. It makes you fun to be around." I'm going to see him right when I get back. He got right back to me. A few days after I got back to the US, I talked to Patrick about this new commitment to living without fear, and he said he'd gotten to a point in his meditation practice where he could like someone in business or personally, even if he knew the person didn't like him back. He could wish well for them, hope good things, maybe even invite them out, even if he knew they didn't like him. That is living with freedom. You're living proactively on your own decisions and reacting to other people. Not reacting to other people and just anticipating their reaction. Last week, I was heading to LA before coming to hang out with you guys here, and I had an idea. My huge guilty pleasure in life is Glee, other than travel. And I didn't really know anyone. I looked it up and saw that they were filmed on Paramount, and I didn't know anyone at Paramount, but I went on LinkedIn and searched and saw that there was a friend of a friend there, but I didn't know the friend in common. LinkedIn. But I tracked this guy down on Facebook and sent him a note. I'm like, "Hi, I love Glee. I'm a normal, upstanding member of society normally. Started an internet company. Is there any way I can come visit the set?" And I went on Wednesday with my friend Ted, who's here too, because he actually got back to me. People want to be nice. So how does this affect work? I had a meeting with a venture capital firm 2 weeks ago, right after I'd gotten back to the US. Normally, I'd go to these meetings super buttoned up. And normally, I would say very buttoned up things. But this VC asked me, "How did your travel change you most?" And so rather than saying, "It made me realize how much I love work," what I thought he wanted to hear, something like that, I actually was honest. And I said I started meditating, and it changed my personality, and it changed my life. So we talked about my meditation practice and how he could meditate, and that was how he spent the hour. And normally, the old me would have walked out of this meeting terrified. But I was honest. And then when I got home, I thought, what a follow-up email. I was the queen of the really boring business, email. "Nice to meet you. Let's get together again soon." But I thought of a funny but sort of quirky email to write him as a follow-up. And I wrote it out, and then I'm like, do I send? And I thought about the bungee jump, and I thought about the tingles, and I went, send. And then I heard back from him, and he said, "We decided that was the best meeting we'd had in recent memory. We'd like to get together again. I am also seeing them right when I get back to New York." In the past, I was so filled with fear that it permeated all of my interactions. I was afraid people wouldn't like me. I was afraid if I had a staff, that they would say bad things about me. As a boss, I was afraid to give any criticism. I didn't advocate for myself ever because I was afraid of getting fired. I was never authentic, and people sensed it. Now, living without fear, I can be authentic, and I can say what's on my mind, positive and negative, and it does draw people in like a magnet. And so this is living without fear. And I highly recommend it. It's living with freedom, and it makes you more relaxed, happier, better at your job, and better with people personally and professionally. And people can sense you don't need their feedback and their approval, and they like it. I think that you can start by conquering your own fears. And so, here in Las Vegas, where we are, there is a thing called the stratosphere. And you can bungee jump off of this. And I may or may not have had a call with them earlier today to negotiate a group discount rate for all of us here today. And so, if you would like to join me in living without fear by conquering your physical fears, then let me know, because a group of us are gonna go tonight, no joke, and jump off this thing and start living authentically without fear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dina. All right. Let's get the lights up a little so we can see hands, or I'm going to be running in the dark. And then we're going to do Q&A here. And I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to join you. I'll tell you later, because that's terrifying.
We got a great rate.
Okay. All right.
$49. Skirt might be tough. But if you give me your names, you can get the rate for tomorrow and the next day, too.
In your opinion, and this is truly subjective, what do you feel is the difference? Because it seems with you, your fear permeates your life at one point, whereas let's say somebody's afraid of heights.
Yep.
You really can't avoid heights. And do you think like something like that, or fear of spiders or snakes, really affects your entire life?
Wait, say that again? What's the question?
If you have a fear of one thing, like a fear of heights,
Right.
a fear of snakes, a fear of spiders, let's
Right.
say, you know, but so obviously you don't get a job working with snakes or spiders.
Right.
How do you feel that fear permeates all areas of your life?
I mean, you definitely have to be mindful. That's the first step. So part of my problem was that I just wasn't mindful, and I didn't even know to call this a fear. But I mean, how does it permeate your life? That could translate into, I was extreme. I was afraid to walk. But I think fear is something that infiltrates your life. That's sort of what I'm trying to get across in ways that you don't realize until you start really thinking about it. But so I think it's unbelievably powerful that to recognize your fears and then overcome them, because you can, because your personality can change. And then it will give you that power, that self-mindfulness to start being funnier with people, you know, to take chances with your language, to ask for meetings you wouldn't think you would normally ask for. So I think it's very personal, but it's very real, and fear does translate. So I would say just be mindful of it. Or say to yourself, this is what I say to myself all day, what would my life look like if I lived without fear? That runs through my mind all day, all day. What would I do if I lived without fear?
Great question. We got one here from Kathy Brooks.
So first of all, Dina, congratulations.
Thank
because
you.
it's awesome.
Thank you.
And having also had my own bout of panic attacks, I know what those are like.
Thank you.
And that's it's your courage in sharing that. Thank you for that vulnerability. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So for people who can't take a year and travel around the world,
It's
you
much
know,
cheaper in Asia than in America.
I'd like to. I have some dog stuff to do here first, though. When you think about kind of tangible things that you offer to people when they say, okay, so what can I do here? You know, maybe I don't have, okay, well,
You and me, baby.
we're going to talk about that later.
We have a reservation at 9.
Maybe. I have to go get my teeth cleaned. I'm going to conquer my fear of dentists tonight.
Tonight
instead.
at 9 o'clock, really?
Why not?
Really?
Why not? I'm getting my hair done, and my teeth cleaned. But what would you suggest to people who maybe have to stick a little closer to home, and what kind of support system? Because you were out there on your own.
Yeah, the
Right,
bungee
right.
jump was very conscious, actually. I had gone with some very close, dear girlfriends, and I think it would not have been as profound an experience if I'd gone with them. It was this, well, I mean, I was cowering in the bathroom for an hour, so that wasn't conscious. But when I did go out, I consciously didn't look for them and thought, I need to do this on my own, and that's how I'm going to have a profound experience, which I really did. There are so many things you can do. If you're afraid of spiders, surround yourself with spiders. I mean, like that ziplining thing, no, you have no idea how scared I was of ziplining in northern Laos, where like the safety standards were just non-existent. So step into it. If I can do that ziplining, you can surround yourself with spiders. But so whatever your fear is, do it. Do this bungee jump. Come with me tonight. Because if you start conquering fears, like we were saying, what's your name? Debbie. Like Debbie and I were communicating, it translates. So, I mean, I guess it would depend. What's your biggest fear now, Kathy?
Ooh. Let's put you on the spot.
Could be talking
public
to
speaking, can't you tell? Yeah, I've got a spider issue.
So, I mean, get a friend that you're close with, or I'll do it with you tomorrow, and we will put you in a room of spiders. And if you conquer that fear, your life will change. I mean, your life has changed a lot, so you're a great example of mindfulness.
She's comfortable with where she's at. All right, over here.
You never know.
Love everything you said.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it was a bigger fear telling that story on stage than it was for anything else? And now that you have been that vulnerable, how is that going to change your life going forward?
Yeah, it's totally changed my life. I mean, when I see my friends, I have one good friend here, Ted, in the back, but when I see my friends, they do look at me. Okay, now I'm like sweating, but they will say, "You're glowing." People here in the US have stopped me on the street. I feel so light. I was so not funny, so not fun for so many years. I took myself so seriously. I thought I needed to act like a guy entrepreneur, or only like an old man entrepreneur, business person. And so, no, really, that was the role that I played for years. And so I'm so different now. You know, I might not be funny all the time, but you know, I try on email now, and I have fun with it. And sometimes I am funny, but I was never funny before. So that's a step. My whole life is so different. That Glee thing, I never would have done that. I mean, I basically sent a note to Facebook on someone I don't even know, say like, I want to go on the set. Like, oh my God, and what's amazing is that once you start this process, the world just opens up to you. It's like you're almost like spreading good karma to the world, because I'm really honest with people, like the good and the bad. If someone does something that pisses me off, I'll say, I feel badly about that, or I feel nervous about this, rather than just bottling it all up, which I did at my company. I was afraid to ask for a staffer. It's ridiculous. So when you're honest and authentic with people, they sense it, and people get more drawn into you like a magnet. It's like magic almost.
It's like magic. Okay.
Oh, here's one in the back.
You had one, but there was one in the back first, so I'll come back. I need to get back in the back. All right. There's only been a few back row questions, so.
Yeah, so my question is, I love the idea of authenticity and being authentic and doing things you wouldn't have done otherwise, but have you ever found when you were authentic that, you kind of stepped too far and wish you weren't as authentic as you were?
Yeah, I did it tonight. So I did it tonight. So to Frank and Molly and Jen, I apologize. I was worried that the first set of speakers, who were amazing, but that the time was going on so long that you guys were all gonna get up and like in mutiny walk out when I was talking. So I was like, you guys, are you worried about the time? I thought I was going on at 7. And I think it was a really big pain in the butt. So I'm sorry to you guys, but I did it tonight. So you learn, a year ago I would have just bottled that all up and been like, no problem. I would have been fake, but nice. So now it was annoying, but authentic, but maybe, So I'm still experimenting with this. Because trust me, the old me would not have said a word. I just would have not been able to walk the street home. But I think maybe in a month, I'm finding my way there. It's like Hegel, right? You like start off here, you need to go here before you can get here. So sorry, you guys. Tech Cocktail, you guys are awesome. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. I know you also have an appointment at 9, so I figured that was part of the rush.
We do.
Okay.
The Stratosphere, he had a question over there.
Okay, who's up next? Oh, up here.
I just had that one short question.
A short question. We'll take short questions.
So where are you going to take Cheryl when you go on a hike?
Ooh. People have met, like Martha Stewart met her business partner on a hike. In the midst of a biking trip, actually. I know I should email her now, shouldn't I?
Just email her this talk. I think that'll do it.
It's so embarrassing that I never. She's even busier now. I can't believe that I never responded to that. Ugh.
Well, bungee jumping.
I'm gonna kick myself.
All right, so that's a great question. Jen has a question up front. Okay.
So how do you recommend, I'm sure new anxieties come up all the time, like new things must pop up. How do you stay mindful of those in your daily life now?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten a lot better. I mean, it really plays out in your interactions. And we were talking a little bit about how it translates. But it's even if I meet a new friend that I really like, like I meet you and I think you're cool. The old me would have thought like, oh, maybe she doesn't like me. Well, now you probably really don't like me since it's bugging you about the time of the speakers, but I would have thought, like, she doesn't like me, maybe she won't forgive me for that, so I think you're really cool, but I won't ask you out to lunch. So now the new me is like, even, I don't care if you like me or not, I like you, so I will ask you out. If you say no, that's okay, because my validation finally after this trip comes from within me. So I don't need you to like me. I can just like you, and there are just no strings attached to me liking you. And you have a different world when that's the case.
Good question. So let me get it straight. You like Jen? Do you like me, or just?
No,
Jen?
I do. I'm so sorry
Okay.
for being so annoying tonight.
Oh, okay. It's for me. It's not. It's me. It's me. It's my. I have problems. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. My problems. Who's up next? I got more stickers. Jen, do you want a sticker, by the way? Okay. Good. Okay. Sorry.
Dina, I'm curious about meditation. You mentioned it a little bit. Do you want to expand on how that's changed?
So meditation is something that my friend Patrick also got me into, and it totally changes your life. So for me, I do Vipassana meditation, and it's a meditation that rewires your brain to basically make you more even during the day, so that you don't have these really high ups and these really high lows. But the main thing that it does for you is actually what I was talking about just a minute ago. It gets you to the place where all your validation comes from within you. So I smile now and I ask Westerners, are you happy? And they say, I have a great job, I just got a new apartment, I'm dating a cool new girl. Like, okay, but all of that is irrelevant. Are you happy? Because what meditation does is it puts you on your path during the day. You're on your happy little path, and very few things can set you off your path, so that your mood and your happiness and your validation is all just rock solid. So I think that there's nothing more powerful that you can do during your life than meditation. I couldn't recommend it anymore. I believe it will be as mainstream in the West as yoga is in 10 years.
Great question. I actually have a question about, you kind of mentioned even keel with meditation.
Other than tonight, sorry.
No, you're fine. What about like your actual diet, things like that? Do you like caffeine, things like that can bring you up and
so
down?
this is the other thing meditation does. It gives you the power to break all of your habits. What it does is it teaches you mindfulness. So you learn to be able to watch your emotions. I feel fear, I feel angry, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel agitated. And so when you start to watch those emotions, rather than just feeling them and reacting to things during the day, you watch it, and then you might say, I feel angry, do I want to express anger? Maybe yes, sometimes. Or do I not want to express anger? Maybe no. But you at least have a choice. So it gets you away from all of these reactions. So when I want to eat healthy, I eat healthy, which is most of the time. But if I want to indulge and have ice cream, which I love, then yeah, live a little, you know? But I'm mindful. I'm saying I am going to indulge in this ice cream. I'm going to love it. I'm mindful about it. I'm not overweight yet. So I'm going to treat myself to that. But it gets you away from all of your bad habits. So I do think meditation's the answer to anxiety or obesity or smoking or any habit you want to break. It gives you those tools.
Perfect. All right. Who's back here? Okay, you had a question.
Hi. Thank you very much. My name's Larry. My question is on living by your terms. And on the freedom thing, I don't, in the point of my life, I'm very, very free. I'm very myself. On the on your own terms, how did that conquering your fear, free you up with on your own terms and allowed you to do that?
Thank you. It's a very mindful question from the Santa Monica resident. My whole life until this trip, I was living on other people's terms. So I thought my co-founders wouldn't have wanted us to hire more people, so I'll just work harder and be miserable, but that's what they want. Everything I did was just in reaction to someone. It was the opposite of saying, you know, I like Jen, I'm just gonna invite her out. That's living on your own terms. It's, you know, this guy, this executive at Paramount might think I'm crazy, but I don't care. I'm living on my own terms. I'm gonna ask him. It just makes you fearless, and it's awesome to feel fearless. People talk about, yeah, freedom in America, freedom to vote, freedom for this, all of these rights, but real freedom is in your head. And if you can get over your fears and just, you know, live your life as you want to live and ask out who you want to ask out for your friends or girls or guys that you're dating, whatever it is, or go for jobs you want to go for, that's real freedom. It's just awesome. Like, everyone should live that way.
Great point. Who's up next? Oh, you got a question. You just want a sticker. No, I'll give you a sticker too, but you have a question?
That people be safe.
She would just like to remind people to be safe while they're bungee jumping.
Definitely. Safety first. Safety first. Here's a sticker. Great point. Double check everything, like triple timed. And helmets. Okay. I actually like to wear helmets just for fun. Okay, so...
Helmet, you're gonna die if that rope breaks, yeah. No
yeah,
helmet.
okay, so double that up. Okay, so who's up next? That's it?
Oh, he has a question.
Oh, one more. How are we doing on time? And in your appointment?
No, we're fine.
Okay.
Whenever we get there. They're open until 2 a.m.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your authenticity. Authenticity breeds courage in others, so thank you for that. Also, a suggestion, right next to the Stratosphere, not too far, there's a wonderful little frozen custard place called Love It. You're going to want to go there tonight after you bungee jumps.
Oh, you know, there's a zip line too, isn't there, in Fremont Street? Never again. No more Northern Lao.
So after that, the question would be, seeing a lot of fear stem from childhood experiences, negative childhood experiences, so on and so forth. Are there any that you peek up their head from time to time?
Yeah. That's very savvy. What's your name?
Henry.
Henry?
Lopez.
That is a very savvy question. Yeah, so the backstory on this is that when I was growing up, I was really bullied in summer camp when I was really little, like 8, 9, 10. I was so unpopular. And all sorts of horrible things that happened. That there wasn't that term bullying at the time, but we're bullying. And so I decided when I was young that I was going to be really popular for the rest of my life, so that I would never be bullied again. I would always be nice to the less popular kids, but I was always going to be popular. So I honed my social skills to such a fine point that I was really popular. But with that translated into, if we're having a conversation, is it Henry, did you say, or Henry? Okay. If we're having a conversation, I will have my social skills so finely honed that I will know what you want me to say, and I'll say things, and you'll like me, and I'm craving you to like me, because I need to be popular. And so that's how I lived my whole life. I would just figure out what people wanted to hear, and then I would say it. And usually they liked me. But, and my co-founders got this feedback on me a lot. A lot of people thought I was inauthentic. And I was, actually. I just didn't realize that I was. So my one is, you know, being popular and saying what people want to hear and be pleasing and, you know, be cool, be one of the cool kids. So that's my cross to bear. So having this new belief that authenticity is more important is a big kick to that old childhood demon. But yeah, what I'm trying to get to is where Patrick is, where I can like you even if you don't like me. Like, that's the opposite of needing to be popular. But I will say this, you'll have some people that don't like you when you're authentic, but 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it draws people in like a magnet because people can sense that you don't need them. I don't know if any of you have spent any time with monks, but it's an unbelievable dynamic to talk to a monk because they're not working any angle with you. They don't want a job, they're not pitching the VC investor, they're not wanting to hang out on Saturday night with you, they don't want to date, for sure, they shouldn't want to date. They don't need anything. And so they're talking to you with no needs. And you feel that lack of neediness, and it's just relaxing. I don't know how else to put it. So that's where I'm working to, is to get to that point where I'm having a conversation with someone where I don't need anything from them. And it's also a great position to be in, to have no needs. We have this belief in Western society that we need more, more, more. I have friends, obviously I'm very tied into the entrepreneurial circles in the US, so I have friends with planes who are very upset that their other friends have bigger planes. And I'm not kidding, like this is totally true. So if you're in that, I want more, you're never gonna get away from that, I want more. If you have the biggest house, you want an island, but someone else has a bigger island, and I've seen this. So you need to get yourself to the place where I really am grateful for what I have. I have no needs. And also that comes from the meditation, the validation from within you. And when you go through life with that, I have no needs, and I'm so grateful for all that I have, your day is a lot easier going along that little path and not getting upset by traffic or little things.
Excellent. So path of gratitude. Okay, so how are we doing? We good? Any other questions? Last question. I'll give you a mic.
Are you still working on your startup? Or?
I'm thinking about deciding among 4 things, so we'll see. It is a question. I feel unbelievably grateful now. I've wanted peace of mind. I found peace of mind. Oh, I didn't tell you guys. My huge breakthrough was, and Jen knows this, so I had to do some things in another part of town, in downtown, and then I had to come here to practice with the keynote. And there were no cabs. Like, okay, I've done like walking on my own a lot now in like Bali. It was very relaxing, but can I do it here? I really actually hadn't walked by myself in the US a lot, not in heat like this, but I kind of had no choice because I was supposed to meet them. And I had this long walk, and part of the fear was I'm gonna get dehydrated, I'm gonna pass out on the street. But I walked here, and I was mindful of what was happening. It was my first sort of long walk in the United States by myself in the heat, and I didn't have water. And I felt fine. And I got here and I wanted to just cry with happiness. So thanks you guys, thank you very much. If you want to go, let me know. We have more than half off.